Today on the show, we're going to talk about that Han Solo Star Wars Anthology movie dilemma. All this and more on What the Hell Did We Just Watch? Welcome to another episode of What the Hell Did We Just Watch? I'm your host, Loumotional Lou, and this is the only show that helps spread TV and movie awareness. How's everyone doing out there in podcast world? I hope everyone's okay. I hope everyone's doing good. I hope everybody's enjoying things they're watching, whether it's in the theater, at home, on TV, or whatever it is, on your phone. The way we watch things now, it's always awesome, you know. It's always fun to spread it out on Netflix or whatever it is that you guys are watching on. So just wanted to get a quick kind of like trailerish kind of like thing just to tell people that, believe it or not, June 27th is the 1-year anniversary of this awesome show. The What the Hell Did We Just Watch show, it makes its first year being in your ears for a whole, for the time being, the anniversary. You know what I mean? So I want to thank everybody in advance that is listening. I want to thank anyone that has had something to say. I want to thank everyone for agreeing, disagreeing with the films that I've talked about. I'm also thanking everyone that's a follower on any of my social media sites and that has put awesome input into it. You know what I mean? Negative or positive. I like anything as long as you're talking. That's what I love to know. You know what I mean? So without further ado, I think I'm going to just go right into it with this real talk rant, and it's about the Untitled Han Solo Star Wars Anthology movie. So one of the things that happened early last week was the directors, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, have stepped down after about 4 or 5 months of actual shooting. And the script has already been written, and also, like almost half of a year they've been filming. So it's kind of like, they stepped away from the film, and that rose a concern for me. And I'll get to get to that in a minute. But one of the things that the reason why they say they left was because of creative differences, with whoever it is that they got to speak to, whether it was the script writer or the producers and all that stuff. And one of the things that, this happens, that's a totally normal thing. And in films, and it's happened on anything that has a long time running series like Star Wars or the Marvel films, or, not DC yet because they just started, but anything that has a really long kind of like history of being on, TV or in cinema, Star Trek, all these things like that. This happens, you know what I mean? And even on regular just standalone films, like something that's being adapted into a book that people love, things like that, directors leave and they change and creative differences and all that stuff. And that's pretty normal. Now, the reason why I'm talking about creative differences in films, and it's something, believe it or not, that's brand new with the Star Wars franchise. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because up until, the first film that came out after George Lucas sold the Star Wars franchise, which was Episode 7, The Force Awakens, before that was never an issue. And even up until now, where they've made 2 Star Wars films, Episode 7 and Rogue One, this was also never a problem. They've picked their director, they've picked the writer, they've done their work, they go home. You know what I mean? But this is the very first time that this series gets a quote-unquote creative difference problem where they gotta, someone leaves the set and does not want to be a part of it anymore. And the reason why was because for the majority of the history of the Star Wars franchise, it was George Lucas's baby. It was his work. It was his thing. It was, there was no such thing as creative differences because the guy that created the fucking thing was the one that was filming the fucking thing. Now, this has nothing to do with how I feel or how you should feel about how good or bad the films are, but what I'm expressing is that this is the first time that, this kind of like situation has happened to the series. And I think it's something that is worth talking about because it's never been an issue. The vision has always been clear for George Lucas to make his film. And if anybody had any problems with it, then they could just hightail it out. It didn't matter because it was his baby. It was his work. It was his labor of love. And he did whatever the fuck he wanted, and I just want to just make a quick statement about, this, because like I said, it's a brand new territory for the Star Wars franchise. I miss George Lucas. That's just plain and simple. I miss him a lot. I miss having him creating this Star Wars universe because it's unfamiliar territory. It's just my fleet or fly or fleet or whatever the hell it is. I'm scared for the franchise because, and I'm not saying that the film is going to be terrible because they switched directors, or because it's because now that the franchise belongs to the world and not to George Lucas, there's so many there's so many different visions per film. There will always be a lot of hands, excuse me, a lot of hands, like touching the work, so there's always going to be a creative difference problem that I'm foreshadowing for the future. This is the first time that it's happened. Maybe it's happened behind the scenes. I don't know that, but what I do know is that this is pretty scary. It's a pretty scary brand new venture, and this is something that Star Wars has never had a problem, and I'm just afraid for the franchise because I feel like that this will be a problem as more films keep coming out. So, you have to, understand my my expressive, what I'm expressing here, the opinion that I have. It freaks me out because this is not supposed to happen to this franchise. At least that's the way I thought about it in my head. There's something, look, this is what I mean about I miss George Lucas. There's something pretty awesome about having a filmmaker, a writer filmmaker like George Lucas create something that he wants. I have this passion for that, for people that are like that, creating something that they want, bringing it to light, and then being able to see it, your finished product, because in the film industry, there's so many hands on everything that when it comes to someone that has 100% creative control, very few people have that in Hollywood or in cinema in general. And that's pretty normal. I'm not trying to say anything crazy, or like that it doesn't exist. It's just that that's a normal thing in Hollywood, and I'm not really shitting on it. It's just that when you've been watching a series for like literally a quarter of your life, like I have, I started watching Star Wars in its entirety when I was 15, I'm a latecomer to that. When I watched it in its entirety, when I was able to understand it, I've seen. When I was a kid, I did see Return of the Jedi. I didn't know that there were more movies yet at the time. And then when I was 15, I saw the box set on VHS and I bought it. And it was the best amount of money I ever spent at that time for a movie. And thus, I think that was also what created or may have, started my movie collection, that I wanted to keep owning more movies. And especially like box sets are awesome, kind of like collections and things like that, and I like that, So when I was 15 and now I'm 37, I'm almost going to be 38 years old, I've been a fan of the Star Wars franchise, and I also grew to love George Lucas. He is one of my cinematic idols, and I don't mean like because he made movies that are perfect or things like that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about from the creative aspect of what George Lucas is. And I'm a big fan of a person that writes and then directs and has this clear vision and knows what kind of music he wants to have in the film, and who like he had like 100% control over everything in the entire franchise for So like 25, 30 years, you know what I mean? And 77 was the first film came out. He sold the franchise, you know, in the mid 2000s, late 2000s, I'm sorry, like 2010 or something like that. I forget when it was, but he had it, you know, everything that came out was with his permission or his insight about everything, you know, whether it was the books or comic books or, you know, toys, everything. Like, he had control, and that's something to admire. That's something to be awed at, you know what I mean? And that's why he's an inspiration to me, because there's nothing. I'm a person that likes to create. You know, I'm a screenplay writer. I have the show, and the best that I can actually say, whether you like it or not, it's the show that I want to make. It's the show that I like. It's the show that I like have to talk about the things that I want to talk about and you can't knock that. You know, you can't really knock that. You know. There's always going to be a fan of what you do, you know, whether it's negative or positive, but you'll always have fans of the things that people will like to do. Everyone is not for everyone, and that's totally fine, but I, you know, totally get it. You know, so I miss George Lucas. That's all I'm going to say. Plain and simple. Now, back to this kind of like dilemma with the Han Solo film, the standalone film. Not to get it twisted, I like the way that it's going. We're doing a great job as filmmakers who are fans or were fans of the franchise, you know, that have been fans of the franchise, and we're carrying the torch for George, and we're doing it in a good way, in my opinion. It could be better on some ends, but we could be more original is what I'm trying to say, you know. And Rogue One short steered that into a right direction, because I think Rogue One, it has the most originality over the last two films that came out. So, excuse me. So I'm hoping that The Last Jedi will have that kind of same flair. You know what I mean? I'm hoping that it doesn't feel like the other movies. You know, that, oh, this is like the same thing that happened in what's it called? You know, be what as it may. I said it before, and I'll say it again. The prequels, whether you like them or not, are more original than Episode 7. That's all I gotta say. There isn't anything that story-wise falls in the same place as Episode 4, 5, or 6. You know, that's 100% true. Now, what I'm trying to figure out, and which will probably never come out, is that our directors, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, they have been working on the Han Solo standalone film for quite a while, about half a year, and everything seemed to we thought was going well, and you know, they leave out of nowhere. So that like brought a shocker to me. So like the question I really have was, what was the creative indifference? You know what I mean? Like, I really would love to know, but I don't think it'll ever come out, or maybe it'll come out after the film comes out. That would be nice if they can figure. I really want to know, like, where was it in the story? Was it in the direction that they were going for? You know, things like that. Now, the other question that concerns me is, will their film be in this film? You know, like, are they going to scrap it? You know, they're part of the Directors Guild. If, you know, half of a year, I'm pretty sure that they have most of this film completed. And this kind of like injunction that if certain amount of the movie was created, that they have to get credit for filming it. So the question is, how much of this film will be in this final cut, or are they just going to scrap it? That, if you ask me, they probably are going to scrap it because I think that it'll save confusion, and I think because of the director that they chose now to direct will want it that way. And it makes sense because they actually have somebody that, though Phil Lord and Chris Miller are known for the Lego movie mostly, but they're also known for the 21 and 22 Jump Street movies that they made. They're directors mostly, but they all have writing credit for Lego movie and also directing credit for it. And they have a pretty good, solid record. You know what I mean? I'm not in favor of the 21, 22 Jump Street films personally myself, but I know where credit is due, where it is, and they get credit. They gave us two movies that we didn't know or think we wanted in terms of a remake and all this and that, and they whether it's an inside home run or an actual home run, that's up to you, but I know that a lot of people liked it. A lot of people loved it. So, and then the Lego movie, forget it. The Lego movie, it became very famous. It was one of the best movies of the year that it came out. It's the reason why we have a Lego Batman movie, and the reason why they want to make Lego movies in cinema. So thanks to them for that, because they introduced something to the world that, again, that we didn't think we needed, or even maybe didn't think that it was a good idea. I, for one, not that I thought that it was a bad idea, but I said, in a world where we're trying to, do Toy Story and all that, it makes sense that the Lego franchise wants in on that. And they got in a big bad way, and they did a good job for it. It just didn't. It didn't feel generic. The movie didn't feel generic at all. It felt rich, and there's some depth of originality in it. And it was a freaking good movie. It was funny and it was fun, and it's for everybody. One of those movies that's for everybody. And they did a good job for that. And so it's the only question I really had was that, what kind of a creative difference could they have had that they wouldn't they seem like people that got good ideas. Why wouldn't Lucasfilm, want to take any part of that? Or why wouldn't they think that these directors wouldn't have any good input into anything new that they were probably trying to put in? Because usually with creative differences is because they wanted to add something to the story or to the film itself, but they couldn't for whatever reasons. Things like that is usually what creative differences are, is because you don't like the direction that it's going, or you want to add something to the direction that it's going, and you have this, you have this kind of like, fork in the road. They chose the latter, which is bye. So out with these two guys who I believe could have made a very pretty cool movie. I didn't have any issues with them jumping on. I thought they were a good choice, and they have a good track record. So with good track record, go right ahead. Now, they leave, and 2 days later, Lucasfilm announces that Ron Howard, Oscar award-winning Ron Howard, is now the director of the film. And I said to myself, okay. Like I said, that's fine, because this is the way that the Star Wars franchise is now. They're still picking quality filmmakers to make these films. I think they're quality filmmakers, and the thing is, but for me, the thing is that Ron Howard, for me, I don't think lately has had a very good track record. And furthermore, I don't think I think he's a fine director. I don't think he's amazing. I think he's fine, and maybe this is what will bring his career, into a different direction, because I think that he's kind of like all over the place. He doesn't really have a specific style, or, that screams out personality. He's a very general director. He's the one that directed Willow, Splash, Apollo 13. He was also like, those are like, I don't have much credit where I'm like saying, yeah, man, Ron Howard, like, he's not really a name director for me. He's just more of a guy that just has movies that made some movies that I like. And that's what scares me about the Han Solo film. Will this film just be a movie that I like? And I don't think so. It's got the same. Lawrence Kasdan, he's been with the franchise for so long. He wrote episode 6. He wrote episode 7. He knows what he's doing, and I know that they're going with the script, and mostly with franchises now, when it's owned by like this big corporation, like it is, like Marvel is. There's a script that needs to be followed. There's a direction that it needs to go, and that's just the way it is. Style is kind of taking a back seat when it comes to franchises, and that's fine, because the vision is the story, not the film. It's style over substance, and it's substance over style. So and that's fine. And how else are you gonna do? Because like I said, the Star Wars franchise, along with a lot of other franchises, is not the director that they pick to make a specific kind of film. It's the director that's willing to roll with the punches and help create the story that is moving the story forward, or helping the story move forward, and if you don't know what else Ron Howard has made as of late, recently, one of the early ones that was like popular was a movie called Far and Away with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. He also was the guy that directed the Da Vinci Code series. So those 3 films they're kind of mediocre. And he also directed which I think is his most popular film, which is A Beautiful Mind. So I mean that's it's a great choice. He's a fine choice, I should say, not a great choice. He's a fine choice. Will he make the film that is asked of him to do? Most likely, because like I said, he's that general good director, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's been working and filming for like 30 years. What helps is that he is a fan, and he is a fan of the Star Wars series. He is a friend of George Lucas, Spielberg, and all those people. So he was actually even on set of the original Star Wars film. Just put it like that. There's a picture of him going around that has him on set, and he's actually talking to Han Solo, Harrison Ford, dressed in his stormtrooper outfit from episode 4, and so he knows what's up. He knows what's going on in his universe and all that, and that's more of a step than what the directors Phil Lord and Chris Miller have over. What Ron Howard has over them. So that's okay. I mean, that brings a little bit of ease, and, but it's, at the same time, we just got to sit and wait. But like I said, mostly the concern is more of like, now we live in an era where the Star Wars franchise has this quote unquote creative difference problem, and they got to switch directors, and then I'm just seeing pretty soon that it's going to be like switching screenplay writers and all this and that. And, it just sucks. It sucks that it has to happen to this kind of a franchise, because it never had a problem all these years. This was not an issue, and it was never going to be an issue because it wasn't a thing that we really thought of. And it was, to be honest, and I was one of the people that was very happy that George Lucas sold the franchise, because I thought that it was going to just end with him. So that means that, someone has the opportunity to keep the hope alive. I love the idea of a new Star Wars movie every year. That's fucking awesome. And I love how they're doing it, where we get a trilogy, and then in between we get 2 anthologies. That's fucking awesome. I love the direction it's going in terms of like how we're getting these films. It's just that it's scary now, because now they're making movies, and at any time, anyone in the creative process can leave, and it could have been a good person that got taken away. Because one of the things that upsets me with the Marvel franchise is that Ant-Man was supposed to be directed by a director named Edgar Wright. I love his movies. I think he's funny, with also a sense of great film direction. And I think Marvel Studios could have benefited from that, but then he left for creative differences, which was obviously in story, because he also co-wrote the screenplay, and then it was kind of butchered. And sometimes it was just like, well, what part is Edgar Wright and what part is the new stuff? Is so they that's what happened, But the same thing might happen with this. I would have loved to see Phil Lord and Chris Miller version of Star Wars, anything. I think they would have done a great job. Probably even created some of the coolest things ever, and have this kind of sense of uniqueness in it. But now we get Ron Howard, where I feel like he's good generic, but I don't think that he has. I personally don't think that he has this kind of like new angle to show anything. Or maybe I'm wrong, and maybe the inspiration of wanting to make this film will give him that, or will he just make the movie that they want him to make? Well, we'll know. I'll hopefully there's some kind of authenticity to the work. If that screams a little bit Ron Howard, and I know it's got to be kind of like, whatever it wants to be, but so I hope he has a good eye. I hope that is something that he really does want to do and wants to be a part of. So congratulations, Ron Howard, and let's see what you do. But I think I talked way too much about this Han Solo Untitled anthology film. You can follow me follow, like, and share on Facebook.com/WhatTheHellPcast, Twitter.com/TheHellPcast, Instagram.com/WhatTheHellPcast. You can follow me on SoundCloud, on YouTube. Comment, like, share, anything. No, let me know what do you think about this Han Solo business. You know, does it raise concern just like it did me? Or maybe you just waiting to see, and that's fine too. Just let me know, man. I love conversation stimulation, so give it a whirl. I want to know what everyone's opinion is about this whole dilemma about Han Solo and the Star Wars and the Phil Lord and Chris Miller's leaving and Ron Howard coming in. You know, let's hope for the best. That's all we can. So like I said, yeah, you got the social media sites. Just like I said earlier, I'm very excited to release the first episode of my second year doing this podcast. You know, it's coming up, and I hope you enjoyed that episode. It's going to be the 1-year anniversary episode. So thank you again. This is Loumotional Lou. What the hell did we just watch? The professional appreciator has just got one thing to say. It's been Loumotional.